Hey TYT, I'm Nomi Konst here in Detroit for the Women's Convention. The Women's Convention is the first of its sort that has been founded by the founders of the Women's March. It is a way to continue the organizing and the mobilization that came about the day after Donald Trump was inaugurated. And here we are in Detroit for the first convention, and I found an old friend of ours. We have Rania Batrice,
Hello.
who's the former deputy campaign manager for Bernie Sanders. She is a political strategist, force of nature. You know, a lot of people didn't see you out in front during the Bernie Sanders campaign, but we all saw you behind the scenes, organizing, hustling with so many other strong women, and I just wanted to create a space where we could talk about some of that stuff, because there's a lot that I think a lot of people wouldn't know about from the Bernie campaign and how you were behind the scenes.
Lots of amazing women.
Yeah. So, okay, my first question for you is, this is a powerful event. There are all different types of women here, and men, who call themselves feminists and stand for feminism. What does feminism mean to you?
Well, to start with, feminism means that if I want to work for Bernie Sanders, I can work for Bernie Sanders, and that's my brand of feminism. Of course, I got a lot of flack for it. In fact, I still, to this day, we're how many months away from the primary in 2016. I've ever in my entire political career only had 2 female mentors, and neither one of them will speak to me still, because I worked for Bernie Sanders, which is, I think, sort of some of the things that we have to work on overcoming. Because again, my brand of feminism, and I think a lot of women's brand of feminism, means that they get to make the choice. I made a choice because Bernie happened to align more with my beliefs and my moral compass in general. And that's what I get to do as a woman in this country who works in this field. So
why did you support Bernie Sanders? For your mentors, why didn't they understand this? What were the issues that spoke to you?
You know, I think for them, they have also been in this world for a very long time, and I completely understand the want to see a woman in the White House. Of course, I want to see a woman in the White House. So I think to them, it felt like some kind of a betrayal, which obviously was not the intention. I wasn't going against any of them or any other women for that matter. But Bernie aligned with me and what I believe. And to be really honest, one of the big reasons I worked for Bernie Sanders, which is funny because he's a Jewish man, because I'm Palestinian. My family's Palestinian. I'm first generation. It's a very personal, important issue to me. And there is nobody that is as good on the issue of Israel-Palestine and the nightmare that is Benjamin Netanyahu than Bernie Sanders. So that was not obviously the only reason, but it was a big reason.
You see a lot of different faces at this convention. We're standing behind a wall right now where there's art that you were telling me off camera is a collection of artist work, political artwork, everything from divesting in DAPL and prisons to being supportive of Palestinian rights. And I find this a fascinating wall, which is representative of the people who supported the Women's March and who call themselves feminists. How do you see this movement coming about in the next few months? Because we just got to be real here. Because there are so many different types of feminists out there who have different definitions of feminism based on maybe the wave that they came through, their personal experiences. How do you see women uniting and men uniting behind these women, as we move forward in the age of Trump?
There's something I say all the time. Resistance is great, but what the hell do we stand for? And I think that is where we are right now. There's been a lot of resistance. The Women's March obviously was historic. There was the March for Science. There was the Equality March. There have been all these marches, which are amazing and wonderful. And seeing people take to the streets is truly, truly remarkable. But it's not enough. And this is where I've had a little bit of concern. We really have to start organizing, and we have to start being very specific about what do we stand for? Again, resistance is great. But as we've seen with Republicans, 7 years of resisting the ACA, and then it comes to be their time, they have nothing.
Yes.
I don't want us to be that.
Yeah.
And this is the good news is I think there are a lot of amazing, wonderfully smart people with a lot of really great ideas, whether we're talking about economic justice or the environment or healthcare, whatever the case may be. There are some really strong people whose voices need to be elevated, and we do all need to come together and start putting pen to paper and showing what we stand for and what we are fighting for, not just what we're fighting against. I also am a very firm believer in intersectionality, and I think that term came about in reference to feminism. Which is always very interesting to think about. But I think intersectionality is not just about feminism, right? It's about how does environmental justice fit in with feminism, fit in with labor, fit in with the environment and healthcare and all of these other things. I think it doesn't take very much work or effort to see that everything is kind of interconnected.
Yeah.
So even if I'm not a subject matter expert on X, Y, or Z issue, I'm still connected to you and your issue in some way. And I think that will take us a long way in the whole notion of coming together and working together and moving in a positive direction against Trump, but also just against everything that came before Trump that got us to this point.
It's interesting because there is this debate within the Democratic Party and the progressive community over whether or not we should pursue economics or identity politics. And I don't necessarily think it's either or. I think that economics is the root, and it is the force of intersectionality. It is the thing that interweaves, there's a corporate capitalist power base that is invested in pitting groups against each other. It is invested in, hurting the environment.
Yeah.
It's invested in all these things that make profit over people. How can we communicate to maybe less woke feminists, if there's a way of saying that economics is incredibly vital, and Medicare for all and the $15 minimum wage and all of these issues are crucial for feminists of all sorts to support? I mean, there are elected officials. There are female elected officials that are Democrats who do not support Medicare for all. How do we make that case to them so that they understand they're the ones who are going to help elevate the next generation of feminists and other women to get into office? What's the messaging on that?
I think you hit the nail right on the head, actually, at the very beginning. You said there's this sort of mentality of either or, and unfortunately it's not just around economic equality. It's around so many things. I am a firm believer, and maybe I have way too much faith in people, but I'm going to keep that faith in people. I really believe we can do both and. So whether we're talking about rural America and the rest of the country, or we're talking about Medicare for all or minimum wage or whatever the issue may be, I don't think that this is either or. In fact, I don't even think we have the luxury to approach things from an either or perspective. I think people are starting to come to recognize that. We need to do it a little bit more quickly, in my opinion. But we really do have to get to a point where we can talk about all of these things collectively. And then again, it comes back to intersectionality. We can't talk about rural America devoid of the rest of the country, because we are the United States of America, right? Everything that happens in one part of the country is going to affect everywhere else. So with sort of the crises that come up, and as rapidly as they're coming up, whether we're talking about devastation from hurricanes or any of that, it's very easy to sort of almost become introverted and think about just what's going on right now in my life and forget that there are a million other pieces that are contributing to that as well. And then the extension of that too is I think we try to pigeonhole people. So the notion that the immigrant community only cares about immigration. Obviously they care about immigration. They too want economic equality, or that women only care about choice. That's insane. Of course they care about choice, but they also care about a million and one other things. And so our ability to allow that space for people to care about all of these different issues that are all important, I think is going to be beneficial as well.
And it's interesting because it's not just about women who need to have that space to have conversations about issues that are not necessarily front and center for their community or what the media portrays as front and center in their communities, but men. I mean, if we want to win, we also need male allies, just as the civil rights movement needed white allies, and there were preachers and there were Greek Orthodox, bishops that walked across, in Selma, right? So, to bring it back to Bernie for a second, just because there was so much attention, and today, he was brought up at the convention. Bernie Sanders was brought up. Tamika Mallory, one of the founders, had said that she went on stage to introduce Representative Maxine Waters and said, we first went to Maxine Waters and we asked her, can we use Reclaiming Our Time? And she said yes. She goes, we did not, despite what the media said, we did not go to Bernie Sanders, even though he's our brother, and we wanted him to speak. And there was this tension in the air, right? There was a tension in the air. But the truth is to move forward, especially in the Senate, right, when the numbers are so close, we do need our allies.
Definitely.
And we need all kinds of allies.
Absolutely.
Men, women, Republicans, because we got to move the votes. How do we make sure that these conversations, again, it's like they want us to be pitted against each other. How do we make sure that these conversations are about how do we expand our bases? How do we work with each other? How do we all understand intersectionality means we win as a group?
Yep. Yeah, I think, and you mentioned Republicans as well, and I think that's a really important point too. This whole otherizing thing that's going on, has to stop. It's not helping anybody. We'll keep losing. We'll keep seeing our country that we all love very much be turned into something it's just not. And I think that one of the first things we need to do, we should have already done, but I understand it takes time, is stop otherizing each other. And that this is not only about like a Hillary-Bernie divide. Yeah, that's of course. But this includes Trump voters, too, and I know that's painful. And listen,
I hear you. I've been on Fox News, and I got attacked for that. I hear you.
It's not, I have no love, obviously, for Donald Trump, in case that's not clear. No love. But there are Trump voters who have openly said they regret their vote.
Yes.
Well, where are we going to send them?
Right.
If we can't get over ourselves and say, you know what, listen, forgiven, come on over, the water's fine here, we're kind of doomed a little bit, and that's a terrifying notion. And you don't even have to look that far. It's not like it's such a stretch. The number of Barack Obama voters who voted for Donald Trump is staggering. We've got to bring them back in, and that's only going to happen if we are truly what the Democratic Party is meant to be, why I've identified as a Democrat since I was 11 years old, so not quite my entire life, but pretty close.
We'll forgive you.
Yeah, thank you. Because we are supposed to be the party of the people. So let's get back to that. Yeah. I think that's who we still are at our core. I think I think people care about other people. And so I really believe we have to get back to that.